in a few minutes. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our another series of Cohere AI Hack Workshop. So today we have Judge. He'll be dumbing things down for us for the next 1 hour. Then afterwards we would have another talk by Sarah in about an hour. So thank you for joining. Judge, the stage is yours.
All right.
If you have any question, please feel free to ask.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. So my name is George. I'm a machine learning engineer and also one of the co-organizers of AI Saturday Lagos. So the theme of this talk is basically the dummy's guide to Cohere's API, like getting started. So let me just give you like a background of what happened to me yesterday before we start. Yesterday was actually my first time interacting with Cohere's API, and I was like, let's assume this is my first time using it. What are the challenges and what are the, let's assume I'm supposed to build like an MVP, like under 2 hours, which is exactly what I did. Like, how many products can I build? How many people can I convince, right? So that was just like the thought process behind it. And after the talk yesterday, Tejo reached out to me that, you know what, maybe we should have like a proper session on it. So this is like a dummy's guide. This has nothing to do with the, of course, it has everything to do with the hackathon for folks that have not started interacting with the Cohere's API, but then just for beginners, people that have not done anything yet. So I'm going to walk you through the playground, as well as I'm going to walk you through the Colab, right? So let's get started. So first thing first, for you to use Cohere's API, there are like a couple of different things. There are a couple of different ways to go around it. So one way is to go around it using the playground, which is something, let me just switch to the playground. One way is to actually use the Cohere playground, right? Another way is actually interact with it using the SDK, maybe the Python SDK, the Golang SDK. I think they have a Node SDK, and also you can interact with it using the CLI too. So there are different options out there. So for the playground, you don't need anything. Just see it like as a sandbox where you do whatever you want to do, and if you are comfortable, you can pull the code and push it to a Jupyter notebook, or you push it to a Visual Studio Code, right? So first thing first, let's just use the playground. So when you click on the playground, it takes you to another interface, right? So mind you, the point of using Cohere API is that it allows you to build natural language process products, be it sentimental analysis, be it generating text, be it performing text summarization. Yeah, a couple of interesting products you can actually build with Cohere API. So this is an instance, right? What do we want to do here? We want to generate a body paragraph, right? We can do a couple of other stuff. We can generate product description. We can generate blog post outline. We can do a lot of stuff. But in this particular case, what we want to do is that we want to generate a body paragraph, right? And the body paragraph should be about Spotify is a great case study. And the title of the post should be called Tips from a Successful Companies. So it's simple. You just come in here, you click, then just give it a while. A lot of stuff is happening in the background. Then it generates the text. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay. It's not my internet. Yeah. While we're on that, let me just show you the one I've already generated. This is the one I generated today, right? So in this case, for this one, I actually said, you know what? Give me a body paragraph, right? It should be about my promotion to the head of HR in my company. The title of the blog post should be my 2023 promotion. That should be the title. And this was exactly what was generated. You can see here, you can see, let me just zoom in a bit. Control plus, yeah. So you can see as the new head of HR in my company, I'm responsible for leading and developing HR function and operations. This includes overseeing blah, 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 blah. So at the end of the day, if you go through this stuff, it's more or less like saying that I'm overall excited to take on this new challenge to help lead my company's HR function into the future. So this is what was generated, right, using the playground. So let's just tweak this stuff, right? Let's just assume that we don't want to do head of HR. Let's say we want to do head of ML, right? And let's modify my company to Cohere, right? And let's run it. Okay, so while we are waiting for this output, so this is like one very important, this is like one way of interacting with the API. We can interact with it using the playground, right? Then one very interesting thing about using the playground is that you can also generate code. You can actually view the code that is running in the background, right? So this is the code that is running in the background. This is using the Node SDK, right? This is using Python SDK. This is using Go. Then you have the CLI and you have the crawl. So these are like different things to look at when interacting with the API, right? So I'll get back with this. I hope this has nothing to do with my this has nothing to do with my number. This has nothing to do with the number of requests, because I made a couple of requests yesterday. Let's just hope this has nothing to do with the request. But this is just one way to go around it. So let's go back to the slide. So going back to what I said earlier, there are different things to do with this. One very important thing you can do is you can generate posts, which is what I did earlier, right? And when you are generating posts, you can provide like a prompt or text input, such as write a blog post or write a paragraph, a body paragraph, saying something about promotion in 2023. And also, we did also mention that the title of the post should be called my 2023 promotion, right? So looking at that, this is going to take in inputs, text inputs, interact with the large language model, and it's going to give you something. Also, you can go the route of sending in text, generating embedding. So it boils down to what exactly you want to do with this. For some folks, they are comfortable with using the embeddings, right? I'm going to also do an example of how to generate embeddings. While for some folks, they are strictly interested in getting the text outputs, right? Then other things you can even do with it is you can do language detection. You can do like, this is like a very interesting use case. You can do like a language detection, then it's going to tell you that, okay, this language is actually for, this is English, this is German, this is Spanish, and it does, they all have like different application. You can use that for chats, you can use that for email, you can use that for different stuff. So let me do a demo on that. So let's start with the content generation part, right? This is the content generation part. But before we get started, let me just tell you the requirements. So for this collab session, what we mainly need is strictly the Cohere API. What we need the Cohere SDK and NumPy. I'm going to use NumPy to save the embeddings that has been generated, right? So these are like the two main things that we need for this example, right? So going back to what we did earlier, we did generation of content using the Cohere API. So it's simple. First thing first, you import Cohere. Then I have my Cohere key somewhere, which is in my config file, right? Then provide the key. Then other things you can do is, okay, this is for generation of content. Remember, we gave the model a prompt, which is write a body paragraph about my promotion to head of HR in my company, right? And the title of the post is actually my 2023 promotion. That's basically what it is. So let's run this. CD tested, generates content. But let me look into my API keys. Let me actually look into my API. This is pretty new to me. Let me actually see if I can generate a new API key. Maybe I have exhausted my API. Dealings. It's
Okay, George.
yeah, I can hear you.
So
Could you-
I just
Is it possible for you to provide your and generate another API key for me, or can you just send me yours?
I just want you to know that this is being live streamed. So if you want to
Okay.
generate, you don't,
Okay.
or you just did
Okay.
it. Okay,
Alright,
I hope you delete it after the tutorial.
yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm definitely going to do that. Okay. This is interesting. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh, all right. So that has to do with the API keys, right? So to generate content, let's go back to this same stuff. So for this case, same stuff. What I just wanted to do is, okay, I'm going to prompt the model. This is my promotion to the head of HR in my company, blah, blah, blah. Then this was what was generated. Okay. While we are waiting for this, I don't know what's happening, but let's just continue while we're waiting for that. So that's just like a very simple way of generating content, right? So another thing another demo I wanted to illustrate is you can also change the prompt, right? like for this case, I changed the prompt, so. Okay, for this case, I just changed the prompt to my promotion to the head of ML in Cohere and 2024 promotion. So this is just another prompt that you can pass in. And there's something you need to take note of. There are different parameters you can actually adjust, right? You can adjust the temperature, you can adjust the maximum token. But one very important thing that you should take note of is the temperature. So the temperature is like the degree of randomness within the model. So if the temperature is 0, what you're saying is that you want the model to be deterministic. You don't want any element of creativity, right? But if you should increase the temperature to something like 0.5 or 0.9, you are giving it more randomness, more creativity, right? You're introducing an element of creativity. So these are things that you should take note of when interacting with the API. So this is actually proposed generation. And then for language detection, right? This is, let me just show you an example of language detection. This is language detection. You know what? Is it possible for you to share? Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing my screen. Is it possible for you to share? I really want to demo this stuff. Is it possible for you to share API?
Hello, I cannot hear you. Can you say that again?
Is it possible for you to send me another API? I don't know. Can you share yours with me?
Okay, so okay, I'll generate one just now and send it to you while you keep.
Okay. All right. So let's just continue. So going forward, you can do language detection. So let me just show you an instance of the language detection. So for the language detection, what I basically did was that I provided an input, right? Text, good morning. This is good morning in Spanish. This is good morning in Japanese. This is good morning in Afrikaner, and this is good morning in Dutch, right? Then after doing that, what you observe is that it's going to tell you, oh, this is Spanish, text detected is Spanish, text detected is English, text detected here is Spanish, text detected here is like Japanese. So these are like simple things you can do with the model. So that takes me to the next one. So recently we had some of our fellow countrymen coming back to Nigeria from Sudan, right? And this is just like a tweet that tells you what is happening. Okay, they're evacuating them from Sudan, they're bringing them down to Nigeria here, right? So I wanted to summarize this text. I wanted to see how the model is going to respond. Let's assume that, okay, I provide this input, what would the model do? So this is just like a text summarization. This product is actually still in its beta phase, but apparently it works well. So the idea is that you're going to provide the text input, sequence of text, right? After providing the sequence of text, it interacts with the large language model, it summarizes it. So this is what was, this is the output of the model. As you can see that the first batch of Nigeria who were evacuated from
George.
Hello?
Sorry to interrupt you. Yes, I can hear you, but the thing that I'm seeing right now is the language detection.py. Is that what you're still sharing? Because you're talking about text summarization, Sudan. I cannot see anything like that.
Can you still see my screen?
Oh, now we can see it. Now it's visible. Plus, I also DM you the API key.
All right. All right. So this is going back to what I said earlier. This is a tweet from the Punch newspaper. So the point of doing this is to summarize this tweet. Like I actually wanted to like summarize this tweet to see what would happen. So this was a response I actually got from the tweet, right? So this is the first batch of Nigeria we are evacuated in the war from Sudan, arrived in the country late Wednesday. As you can see, this is like a summary of what was provided earlier, right? But then one thing about this is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with hallucination of large language model, right? This large language model can actually hallucinate. It actually can hallucinate, right? So I provided the same text. I changed some parameters. I'm going to show you some of the parameters I actually did change, right? And what you observe is that it started generating, I don't want to say it's gibberish. It's not gibberish, it makes sense, but it's not the truth. So an instance is that after saying everything here, he said the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Oyema, the Minister of State Affairs and Foreign Affairs, Dada, these people are not in this picture. I don't know how we got to know about that. So for me, this is an element of hallucination. Another thing I also did observe is he did mention that the commission said the evacuees were expected to be received by the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Sanwo-Olu was not mentioned in this text. So these are things that you need to look out for. So this thing boils down to how do you want the model to respond? Do you want a deterministic outcome, or do you want a should I say a stochastic outcome, right? So mind you, when you're talking about stochastic outcome, we simply means we want more creativity. So these are things we need to actually look out for. So going forward, let me just show you what that looks like, right? Let me just show you what that looks like. That has to do with customer summarizer. So this is the text that we want to summarize. So this is the Sudan text, right? This is the tweet that I pulled from Punch newspaper. So these are the parameters you need to be careful about. So what kind of model do we want? We want to summarize X lives, right? What is the length of the model? What's the length of our text? We want medium. The extractiveness, we want medium. So when you change the extractiveness to high, that is when you get that hallucination. But in my own case, I left it as medium, and I also changed the value to high. So when I changed it to high, I got the elucidated value. So let's see. Price. Okay, this is summarized. This is with medium extractiveness. So let's change this to high. Okay, let's change this to long, the length to long. So if you change the length, okay, this is exactly what I'm saying. So if you change the length to long, this is what you are going to get. So mind you, you might have hallucinated value, but for this instance, I think everything is fine here. But in the tweet, we never mentioned the Immigration Service. He never mentioned the National Agency for Prohibition and Trafficking in Person. So these are things that you need to look out for, right? But this boils down to what kind of application do you want to use it for? But this is just like an instance of what you can do with the large language model. So going forward, let me just go back. Let's see whether we can demo the language detection. Let's demo the language detection. So So this is the language detection we talked about earlier. Language detection. So this is it. So the first word is English. The second word is Spanish. The third one is Japanese. Then fourth one is Afrikaner. The fifth one is Dutch. So what I actually got to realize yesterday when I prepared this this script, I realized that there's actually a relationship between the Afrikaner and the Dutch, and it makes sense because Afrikaner is the language is actually from Dutch. So these are things that you need to actually look out for when you're working with the API. But so far, so good. I was able to do like a couple of interesting stuff with it. So let's move forward to the next application. So let me talk about generation of embeddings. So I think I did mention that you can provide text and you will get embeddings. These are just numerical representation of text. So let me demo that. So to do that, all you need to do is to use the same. You can see there's consistency in the API. So in this case, you're going to say co.embed, all right? What text do we want to embed? What text do we want to get the embedding? I want to get text like, I like football, I like computer science and AI, I studied political science. So let's see this embedding. Let's get this embedding. So to do this, it's clear. So these are the embeddings. These are the embeddings for, I like football, I like computer science and AI, I studied political science. So let's get the shape. Let's just do some kind of fancy stuff with it. So this is the shape. It's 3 by 4,096. Also, you can save the embeddings. Let's assume you want to save the embeddings using NumPy. So this is, you can save the embeddings. So if you should refresh, you'll see that we have co-embeddings.mpy. So these are like things you can do with the API. You can do a couple of interesting stuff. So let's assume you want to build a product that has to do with using these embeddings. These are things that you can do. You can put the embeddings, save it, and build some interesting stuff with it. So the next thing I want to also talk about is, I think we've talked about summarizer, training of model. So initially, I thought that what you can just do here is, do inference, like make inference, send your inputs to the model, then do inference. I got to realize that you can actually train models, right? You can actually train models by providing the model with your data. So you can just have like an instance whereby we provide the model with examples, right? And also you're going to provide the model with test cases. So in this instance, we are going to train 2 models, customer support, and we will also perform sentimental analysis. So for the customer support, we are going to provide, I'm going to walk you guys through the process. But the idea here is that you're going to provide example for the large language model. You send the example to the large language model. It does training, which is quite fast. Then it gives you feedback. So we're going to demo that. So what are the use cases for this? You can use this for social media monitoring. You can use this for content monitoring. You can use this for feedback. You can use this for monitoring customer feedback. You can also use this for customer support management, right? These are there's like tons of applications for this case study. So let me switch. Let's do a demo for that. What do we want to do? We want to work with the customer support. So what you observe here is that, just like I said earlier, we are going to classify, tickets from customers into 4 classes. So we have like the finding policy details, the change accounts settings, filing claims and viewing status, canceling coverage, right? So looking at that, we're going to provide different examples for this model. So this is the example for finding policy details. This is an example for finding policy details, right? This is an example for change account settings. This is an example of filing a claims and viewing status. So these are different examples, right? Then we are also going to provide inputs. This is more or less like our test case. And mind you, there are different parameters you can change. So what model are we interested in? We are interested in the large model. We are interested in the large model. We are going to provide our input, which is this. We're also going to provide our example, our training example. So let me run this. Python 3, customer support. So this is customer support. So the input, I want to change my password. So I want to change my password is under change account settings. That's where what I want to change my password. That is what is actually under. Does my policy covers prescription medication? So this is under canceling coverage. This is actually under, okay. I want to change my password. This is the percentage. This is the confidence, this is 0.9. The second one, 0.5, 0.8, finding policy details. So this is finding policy details. So you can see that you can provide a training example and your test case, and you get something useful. So think about different situations where you can apply this. Just like I mentioned earlier, you can apply this for feedback monitoring, customer feedback monitoring. You can apply this for monitoring social media content. You can apply this, like there are tons of application for this instance. So let's move to the next example. Sentimental analysis, still the same thing with sentimental analysis. Still the same thing with sentimental analysis. You're going to provide example, right? Still going to provide example. Do you want positive example, negative example? Still the same stuff. And you're going to get the same thing. Let me just run this. Sentimental analysis. So still the same stuff. Tons of application for this. So let's move to the, okay, apparently that's all. So this is the end of our demo. I hope you guys have learned like a couple of stuff on how to use this API. For me, this is just an eye-opener because under 2 hours, I was able to do a couple of stuff with it. And think about tons of application you can build with this. Think about how you can integrate this into a product for developers. Think about like different applications. You can use this in your company, even as a personal project. So there are a lot you can actually do with this. So that's all for this. So once again, thank everyone. Before I actually stop, before I stop, do we still have time for questions? Just in case you want to ask questions, please, you can ask your questions.
So, George, we actually have we have time until 15 minutes past because Sarah is coming to CMU, so she's going to be 15 minutes late because she's transiting here. That was not planned before, so we can talk for the rest of the time.
Okay. So, do we have any questions?
I think there's a question in chat that says you should kindly explain the first part of the classification code you demoed.
Classification code. Okay. All right. This. So I have two classification code. I have the sentimental analysis and I also have customer support.
Is
They're
the
both
customer
using,
support better?
okay, yeah, they're both using the classify API. So just like I mentioned earlier, let me just use this, right? So say this has your normal machine learning process. Say this as a normal machine learning process. You have your train set and you have your test set, right? And for your train sets, you're going to provide examples with labels. This is text for, this is positive text. This is positive review text. This is negative review text. Text. This is neutral text, right? These are different classes. So we provide the examples, we provide the labels. You understand? Now you're going to send the examples to the large language model. The large language model is going to train with that. Also, you're going to send your inputs, what you want to classify, to the large language model. It's going to perform inference on the inputs, right? So you pass your text to the large language model, it does the classification. But mind you, when you pass the text to the large language model, you're also passing the training example and the test case. It trains with the training example, then it performs inference on the test examples. Then it gives you the classes. So going back to the code, this is the train examples. This is the train examples. So this is the text, this is the label, this is the text, this is the label. This is the text, label, text, label, right? This is your test case. What model are you interested in? I'm interested in the large model. What is my input? This is my input. What is the example I'm going to train on? The model is going to train on. The model is going to train on these examples, right? So when you do that, the model will now return classes for the inputs. That's what the model is going to return. The same thing applies to sentimental analysis. The same procedure applies to sentimental analysis. Any other question? I hope I was able to answer your question. By the way. Check the chats.
So there was a
Yes,
question.
yes, thank you. Thank you very much. That was,
All right.
There was an earlier question. It says, is it possible to detect or hide that a text or code has been generated by an AI tool such as Cohere or ChatGPT?
Text or hide. Text. What do you mean by, why do you want to hide the text generated? If I may ask, what's the point of hiding it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have assignment, right? And I mean, it's most likely, it's more about the code, you know. Sometimes you have assignment and, you know, you just want to like tell your teacher, oh, you didn't understand anything, and you just used ChatGPT all the way long, and that's how you end up like dealing with your assignment. So I was wondering if I would say I am more worried about if my teacher will know, oh, I was using ChatGPT like to do my assignment. So I was wondering if there was any, you know, tool that can detect, oh, this code has been generated by ChatGPT, for example, or it could be like, you know, Corey.
Okay. So basically, you want to know if the code generated is actually from ChatGPT. Right?
Exactly, because I did that, you know,
Okay.
and
Okay.
you know, it's a little bit embarrassing to like just like put this away, show this to my teacher. I mean, I have already completed the assignment, but you know, it was kind of tough, yeah. But I was wondering if my teacher will know, oh, I kind of use ChatGPT, you know.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really have an answer to that. But looking at what you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Looking at the use case. I know that there are like ways to. This has nothing to do with Cohere. This has to do with how to know if a text was generated from ChatGPT. And I read like a couple of. I read a paper about yes, a tool they use internally to detect if a text was actually generated. It is possible to know if something was actually generated from a large language model. But mind you, the way I see these things, like I think this is actually a very important thing to talk about. I see these tools as an enhancer, right? They're supposed to augment the way you do things. It shouldn't just be your ground truth. Just like I gave you an instance of the code summarizer, it hallucinates. So imagine that you don't know that this is actually an hallucinated output. You'll be messed, like it's actually messy, like everything was going to be messed up. So what you want to do is, this is how I'll encourage everyone. This actually goes out to like students, right? Try as much as possible to have like the fundamental knowledge of what you want to learn about, right? Let's assume, okay, let me give an instance. A few weeks ago, I was trying to figure out how to use Redis database, right? Then what I did was that I did like a crash course on how to use Redis. Like this has nothing to do with ChatGPT. I just did like a crash course on how to use Redis. Then I was comfortable, okay, I can use Redis. Now, what do I want to do next? I want to build an API, a Python API that will interact with Redis to do so and so thing. Then I asked ChatGPT, this is what I want to do with Redis. Of course, it generated like a whole lot of stuff. But then I was able to use my basic understanding of Redis to navigate around the code base. So I see it as a tool that will help me, that will enhance my workflow. I don't see it as ground truth because let's assume I don't have any idea of Redis and I copy and paste that code. I can't debug that code. I can't do anything with it. So this is like shall I say it's like a warning, right? See these tools as a means to enhance what you want to, enhance your knowledge. Don't see them as ground truths. Yeah.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. But I mean, when you are like, you start coding, it's like sometimes a little bit difficult because they give you like some crazy assignment here. So yeah, so
it happens. All right. So any other question? Any other question? Yeah, I'm going.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to share the code.
I already shared that, George. Thank you so much. There's another question in chat that says that apart from detecting the languages, can Cohere also do translations? For example, for what you showed, it would detect the language and translate the language to English.
Maybe to the translation. You know what? Let's just find out. Let's check. We have examples. Okay. We don't have anything on translation. Hopefully in the future it's going to support translation, but we don't have anything on translation for now. Any other question?
So I have a question for everyone. What kind of applications are you thinking about? You don't have to give everything out, like we are competing here. Just just wondering, like, how you're thinking about you can talk about maybe the domain or like your targeting. Are there any challenges you've been facing so far? And we also saw from George's demo that you can max out your API token. So if you have 5 people on your team, just keep changing API. This is not
Actually
ideal.
embarrassing.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, so it looks like some of, depending on the use case, some of the APIs, like you could only interact with them like 5 query per minute for some, and for some it's like maximum of 100. So we'll try to see if we can speed things up, but if not, like just let us know if all of your teammates have exhausted the call, then we have to do something about it. So there is a question, or maybe just a comment. Can you, in theory, use generation to translate? Asking the generate model to do translation. Let's try that demo. Isn't that interesting?
Let's use the dice to be on the safe side. Okay, what do we want to do? Playgrounds. Can I tell the what was the question again? What's the question, please?
I think you can just write something in English and tell it to translate it to maybe Yoruba or something like that.
I'm not really idea of great about it's like any generate intent of fire data set. Like in the right one sentence, I have to write 1 million or First, this looks like good morning Spanish, I believe. Let's see.
So why don't we use the language that we can understand? Why don't you say she translate it to Igbo? Which one is why you do Spanish general? Just tell it to do it in Yoruba or Igbo or something that we can all read.
Okay.
Or like any African language.
All right, so let's switch to Yoruba. All right, let's see. Is that what is this? Is that Yoruba? I doubt.
Absolutely not. I have no idea. Wamode. Oh my
Okay,
God.
let's try Japanese. Japanese. Okay. My beads. Let's copy and paste. You can't go wrong.
No, we need to do it.
You know what? Let's try Hausa. Let's try Hausa.
Isn't that weird? Like George is cheating on another translator to verify. I don't know. Why don't you try Igbo? You can read it, right?
I doubt.
You don't know. Try Igbo. I mean, this is the whole point, right?
I think also it's not a bad option. Just try it.
I've actually checked.
What is it?
Apparently, this is Igbo. Looks like.
Does it say wait? Does it?
You know what?
Does it say good morning, everybody?
Let me not embarrass myself. Let me just translate to Igbo.
George, we send you back to village. You cannot read Igbo.
Please, let's not do that.
Oh my God. Okay, we can try Hausa. We have some Hausa. We have some people from.
Okay.
And we can try Kuriwawanda. Is that how you say it?
Amharic.
It does not have support for that.
Amharic. There is Amharic.
Okay. Let's try Amharic after Hausa. We have people that knows what it says.
Hausa.
So our Hausa peeps, what is it? Anyone? Mubarak, is it correct?
Well, actually, this is not correct. Very
It's correct.
This is
Okay,
not correct.
okay.
Hausa. Is it
Oh,
even Hausa?
but
Which other language should we give a try? You know what? I think
try
check some-
Amharic, please. Try Amharic.
Mari, can you spell please?
AMHARIC.
AMHMRIC, right?
Yes. No, Amharic. AMHA. No. AMHA. Amharic. There's no M.
Like this, right?
Yes.
You got person. But I can't tell. I don't speak that.
So
look
is
familiar?
it correct? No, my Ethiopian queens here said no.
Alright.
It's
We need
complete butchering.
we need to have it in the back of our mind that there are like over 100 supported languages, I believe. Language, what's this again? Text. Yeah. Text, right? So mind you, this is actually, we don't have a translation API. We have a text detection API. Let's not mix these two things together. We have detection, not translation. So apparently it can translate, but we don't have a specific API for translation. Please, let's be guided. Yeah. Any other question besides translation and detection? Any other question? Hello, I can't hear you.
Are you speaking? It's not.
Any question? Any other question? Okay.
No.
Suggestion. I think we can call it
Can you do semantic
semantic
search?
semantic search. Yeah, I think you can do that. No, I believe there's semantic search. You can do that. Yeah, semantic search. Semantic search. Mind you, you can do semantic search here. There's a need here for semantic search. Yeah. And just in case you want to look into this, there are a couple of things you can actually do. I think on the README, I left yeah, on the README, I left a couple of links, right? There's the Cohere Python SDK, which is actually one of the best resources out there. We actually updated it like a few days ago. Everything you need to know about interacting with the API, setting it up. This is the go-to material for that. Also, there's Cohere's Jupyter Notebook. Interesting stuff. You can learn a lot of stuff like multilingual, topic modeling. You can all do that using this notebook. Then show that thing again. Oh, finally, then you have my slide. So in all, that's all I have for today's session. I hope you guys have learned one or two. Mind you, for folks that are working on their hackathon, I don't know how this is going to help you because my target audience is actually not for you. It's actually for like the very beginners, right? But then maybe you can apply one or two from this for your projects, right? I wish everyone the best of luck and see you in the final stage. All right, Stacey, that's all for me.
Thank you so much, Judge. You're very right on time because Sarah just got here, so we would be transitioning into Sarah's talk. So everyone should please continue to stay on the call while we set Sarah up, and stay tuned. Just a moment. Thank you,
All
Judge.
right. All right.
Yeah. Is it possible? By the way, how is everyone doing? Can we get pictures from different communities that are in person? So that we can share it. Oh, I see the Kano group. They're already hacking. Mubarak, thanks for showing us a view of everyone. I think I can also do the same here. Let me just change the setting. So, George, are you already at the venue? I think you are, right? Can you show us the audience?
Hi, Teju. How are you doing?
Okay. Do you like my Cohere hat? I'm being silly right now. So we are right here at CMU Africa, and with the awesome people here at CMU Africa. Just different nationalities. Okay, awesome. We're almost starting.
Oh, okay, so I should just.
Yes, and it's already been live streamed, so it's okay.
Oh, so, okay, so I'll just do it to here.
Yeah, could
Oh,
you say? Okay, then this is Sarah. She's about to join. I'm so happy that she's here in person. We were supposed to have the talk remotely, and she was like, why would I do it remote? I'm already here. I'm just gonna come here. So we're very happy to have her join us here in person. No, you. I'm the same. Please don't share any company.
Okay, I think I've joined.
Okay, success. Can everyone hear me? Remotely? Okay, thumbs up. Oh, that's a thumbs up from Teju. Does anyone? So what about other locations? Can they hear me? Where's Mubarak Isa? That room looks too serious. Everyone's just so focused there. Can we get a thumbs up?
We can hear
Yes.
you, Sarah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Great to hear. Who else is here? So AI Saturdays Ibadan represent, who's in that room? Okay, everyone's waving. Okay, nice to be here. It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much, the organizers. So I have to say, I was not involved at all in organizing this. So this is such a nice event because there was a team from Cohere who met Teju, and they've just been collaborating for months, and they asked me to come today, but it was really lovely because there's so much community already. So there's so many of you who are doing this work in different places. So I'm just excited to be here. I know that you've just done this hackathon for a week, and I know you're still busy with it. I honestly just wanted to share some of the research that we're doing and maybe ways to continue to be involved. If you want to keep on working on language, we're doing this big open science project. So I asked Teju and I asked Louise, who helped organize this, I'm like, would this be interesting? Like maybe people after this hackathon, maybe some things have piqued their interest. Would they be interested in continuing and maybe doing some more research? So I'll tell you about a project that honestly has been so close to my heart for the last 4 months. It's such a group of like cross-institutional collaborations that are working on this. But I think it's one of the most important problems to work on right now for research. And so maybe I'll share it, and I would love to, for those of you who are interested, I'm happy to stay after this for an hour because I'd love to get your feedback on the project, because this is a project in motion. So sometimes researchers only share their projects when it's done, when it's a PDF, when it's like finished. So this is a different. I'm going to share something that we're working on and that we're putting our hearts into right now. So what I'm going to talk about today is AYA. So AYA is an open science initiative to accelerate multilingual progress. And maybe I'll start by saying, who am I? So I lead Cohere for AI. So I lead Cohere's research team. And before that, I was at Google Brain. So I met Teju back in the day when I was at Brain in Nyeri, Kenya, of all places. But I was at Brain for 5 years. I did a lot of research on efficiency, interpretability, robustness. I'm happy to talk about that as well. But now I lead our research team at Cohere for AI. And our team works on different efforts. Our goal is really to change where, how, and by whom research is done, but it's also to show that we can do this while also producing top-tier research. So we have an open science initiative. So we have communities that are working together across institutions, and we help provide compute and things like that. We have a full-time research staff, and then we have this research scholar program. So if any of you are interested in this, it's also good to know about. Every year, we have an 8-month paid, completely paid remote first opportunity to have your first research experience. So it's for rising stars in research, but it's for people who haven't published yet. So our goal is to support people just starting out. So this is our mission. And it's hard. Yeah, I think part of why it's so nice to be here is to see other people who are also doing this mission, right? Of changing how research is done. This is our team. This is our research scholars. Actually, Leke is also, yeah, so Leke was here this week. Many of you might have met him, but he's one of our research scholars as well. And today I'll talk about our open science initiative. So it's a space where anyone, you have to fill out an application, but we try and really support cross-institutional collaborations. So as of May, we had 1,400 members. And so it's very special, like people apply from all over the world and then we accept. So I wanted to do this talk because this was what makes me grumpy. So right now, large language models are built by a small group of people. And I know a lot of them. So it's a very narrow group, and they're coming from a very narrow set of places in the world. And I shared these charts when we were at the Indaba X this past week. I was giving a talk, but these are charts that really drive me. So while the overall publications has decreased, truth producing research remains narrow. So I find this is so interesting because we have this spiraling number of publications. Look at how sharp this is. But what we see is that certain types of collaborations happen more. So very often you see things between educational and nonprofits, but you don't things between educational and companies. But also there's major geographic disparities. So I think the craziest is Africa, so 1.06, but Latin America and the Middle East have big disparity in who participates in research. And this is shaping who contributes to the ideas and the technology that's being made. So, you know, what's even more surprising is that some geographies have made recent gains, but I think what's interesting is Africa has stayed very flat. So we have to think really about how do we make sure that we are increasing opportunities everywhere. This is also reflected in who attends conferences. So 53% from North America. And most striking, who participates is very narrow. So this is such a crazy chart. This is the number of what is deemed significant machine learning systems in the last, really 2002 to 2022. There's nothing from Africa that's attributed. This is the number of authors on those significant machine learning systems. So there's nothing there. So I think that's also compute trends, which amplify the disparity of who participates. So academia really finds that hard because of a compute gap. So it's really hard to contribute in different ways. But so why am I talking about Project Aya today? Because especially when technology is powerful, I think it's important. I was at Kipu a few weeks ago. So Kipu is in Uruguay. Kipu is this venue where they bring together all the Latin American research talent. So similar to how many amazing conversations happened this week at ICLR, Kipu is very special in the same way. And we had the same conversation because their researchers are also trying to figure out how do we make sure that we have not this gap in who builds this technology. So Bukursi said this week as part of one of his talks, but I thought it was very special this. It's like when you're not part of the conversation, it happens to you and not with you. So how do we build technology for everyone? So this is how I'm thinking about it. So I like this quote a lot. It says, the limit of my language means the limit of my world. I think right now there are big challenges in terms of representation of languages in our technology. So there's 7,000 languages in the world, but 2,000 have fewer than 1,000 speakers. What's crazy is languages are also not treated equally by research. So for example, my mom speaks Irish. She's from Ireland. She speaks Gaelic. Gaelic is spoken by 0.2 million speakers, but it has 5,000 papers per million speakers. Then you see something like Hausa, where you have 70 million speakers, but only 1.5 papers per million speakers. So this is crazy. And this reflects what researchers are allocating resources towards, but not the actual distribution of the needs of who's speaking the languages. So what's even interesting is that if you look at our multilingual models that are well known, like Bloom, MT5, XGLM, these are generative models. So they generate. This is the latest technology that's really powerful. Look at the number of languages trained on. So 46, 101, 30. MT5 was the most impressive, but it's only 100 languages. So why have some languages been left behind? So a lot of it, I think, is because where our data comes from. So a lot of the data for these big trainings comes from the internet, which means that the composition of languages, who's used the internet, influences what it's trained on. So for me, this is one of the craziest facts. So 5% of the world speaks English at home, yet 60% of the internet is written in English. And we see that as well with these biases towards other languages. So the share of the internet versus the share of actual speakers is often super different. And what we see is that under-resourced languages may have very limited data available. So an astounding 80% of the languages have no text available. Only 1,400 languages have text. When you think about that, is that not crazy? That out of the 7,000 languages, only 1,400 have any text available. So that's the challenge that we have, because it's not just how do we model language, it's like, how are we going to incorporate other data sources? Can we incorporate audio? Can we incorporate other ways that people communicate if there's no written tradition? And what that really means is that 80% of languages have very little text or few text. And so we only have a tiny fraction of languages that actually have text representation. So we also have challenges with data quality. So I'm just setting the scene here. I know it sounds quite gloomy, but I think it's important to motivate what we're going to talk about next, which is why we want to do this project. So the data that's available is really low quality. So this is actually work by Julia Kritzer, other collaborators. So if some of you are Masakani, you may know Julia and others on this paper, but it's a very interesting paper. It's analyzing automatically curated data sets and actually human auditing it to check the quality. And what they find is that there's under 50% correct sentences, that the pairing that was automatic was not good. Or may be difficult to generalize from. So I'm sure some of you have heard of this data set or used it. This is widely used for many languages because it's based on Jehovah's Witnesses and they translate it into many languages. And so it's one of the few cross-language corpora that we have for many low-resource language. It's also religious text. So this means if we try and then generalize it, apply it to medicine, it's hard. Sometimes the way that it's trained doesn't work for other very different programs. I also think it's really important to talk about the fact that we have this co-occurrence of limited data and limited compute. So where we typically see limited data, we also see very high cost of compute. So for example, if you look at Germany, it's very high resource. It's also very low cost of compute of gigabytes of memory. The cost that is normally produced is quite cheap as a percentage of monthly income. So we see somewhere like Nigeria, it's much higher. So there's this interesting thing that researchers who are already working in low resource data circumstances also face limited compute. So this was work led by Areva Iya. So she's now a PhD student at the University of Washington. Teju's smiling. She's a good friend of both of ours, but this was really lovely work. And she terms this the low resource double bind. So this was published at EMNLP. So that's our goal. Our goal is that no language should be left behind. And I think it's a great time to work on this problem. Why? Because we're currently in an exciting time for large language modeling research. So this is actually a research model that is hosted on a mobile API, so I can text it. So I said, oh, I'm giving a talk about large language models. Like, why is this exciting? And you can see it generates something very fluid, really exciting. It's a very exciting time. People have connected with this technology, and you have probably played with a chatbot of some kind. You probably played with Coheres this week, because in some ways it's really powerful. I can even say, what should I do when I'm in Rwanda, and it will give me suggestions. And this all builds on this recent breakthrough, which is, things like the transformer, which really made a big difference in how we can model and represent languages. So actually, Aidan is on this paper. So Aidan's one of the founders of Cohere, and actually was at the Deep Learning Endeavor a few years ago. That's where he met Teju. And transformers were a breakthrough because they allowed us to model much longer text sequences. So you could go from something which could only have a short window of context to a much larger window. And that's what's led to it being one of the most popular building blocks of all times. So what I think is what we see now is a great acceleration in some trends, some breakthroughs. So one is a growth in the size of networks, and this characterizes both NLP and vision. And this is largely because we see big gains for this. So we see when we increase the size, we end up with big gains. But we also see that it appears to create different capabilities in the models. There's also been changes of optimization. So typically you would fine tune on a single task, and then you would have like a model per task. Now we've moved to something where we pre-train on the internet, and we do that because we learn general features, and then we create, instead of creating a custom model, which is what we used to do, we instead train on multiple tasks at once, so many different tasks. And this has been a big breakthrough. It transitions from having a single model per task to many different models. And then we've also seen changes in data. So we have this zero-shot performance. So two changes have happened. We structured fine-tuning data as questions and answers. So we'll talk about this because I want to get your feedback on the Aya project and how we're structuring it. And then we're integrating human feedback about preferences. So when I say we're structuring data as questions and answers, it means this. So, you can structure it as an instruction or a question, and then it will generate a response. And what that's done is really improve performance. It tends to lead to much better behavior. However, it requires a much larger model. So there's this tension where you have to go larger to take advantage. And so we've seen a lot of breakthroughs. So it's a timely moment to figure out how can we make these breakthroughs apply to the rest of the languages, because almost the entirety of the research has focused on English. So there's been very limited treatment of multilingual. So the very few papers that have come out. So one paper came out in November of last year. This was released. So actually, so the first author is now working with us on IAM. So this is amazing. This was an important first step, but it actually just took the data, some of the data that was there, threw it in. And so this is an important first step in this direction, but in some ways, there's a lot of ways to go. So what they saw is that when they did this, then they added instruct style data for multilingual, they did see gains in performance. So you see things like this. This is the MT0. Let's see. Yeah, this is MT0. So you see these bumps from doing the instruct style. But the data sets they added only covered 46 languages and had no human feedback optimization. What does this mean? I think there's plenty of low-hanging fruit for us to actually build something meaningful and to really push the technology. So we should add human feedback. We should have speakers from all over the world be able to contribute to their languages. We should audit the quality of existing data sets because a lot of what was thrown in is not necessarily good quality. And we should explore data augmentation strategies. So what is Project Aya? This is what I would love to get your feedback on today. And also, if you want to continue this journey, I know you just did this hackathon, but if this piques your interest about language, you should join the research community and you can continue to engage with us if you're interested. But also, if you're not, it's okay too. So we're a 10-month community-wide project to improve generative models for multilingual. So we're at month 3. We've done a lot of work, but there's a lot more to be done. And what the goal is to release research artifacts at the end. So to really release this back to the community. And it's a multi-institutional effort. So from industry, academia, nonprofits, independent researchers, the computers provided by us, because these are large-scale models that we need to train. But there's over 100 countries represented in our community. And so we see it as an opportunity to really support contributions from all over the world. So this is Aya. This is the UI that we've been working on. And so even today, I would love to get your feedback. I'll share with you the link, and then please let me know if for the next hour or so, I'll be around. If you want to stress test and give me feedback, let me know. So it's this UI, there's almost multiple teams. This UI project was built by Haroon, Freddie, and really Sebastian Gurman, who's a researcher. So each team, we have cross-institutional mentors as well as researchers who want to gain experience and want to, work on a project. But this UI was a labor of love because we started out and we're just people getting together across institutions to put something together. But it's really lovely. So it allows, we're still testing it. It's only desktop friendly, but that's why I think it's a good time to start to get feedback from everyone. And what we're doing with the UI is we're trying to things like we want to help support things like, let's tally things by language. Let's have leaderboards where people can see who else is contributing in their language. So, step by step, small things, but we'll see how we do. And then this is Aya. We call it Aya because Aya means fern. So it's a symbol of endurance, independence, defiance against difficulties, and resourcefulness. And we believe that's what this project is. So our project is actually all over the world. There's so many languages. It's Latin America, where I was a few weeks ago. It's really parts of Asia, even very the long tail of languages. The truth is most languages are not well represented. So this really is a global effort. And we believe it's step by step because it takes so much work to do this. So how can you get involved? So I think this is really when I talked to Teju about what might be interesting for us to chat about today, I thought this might be one thing. So if you want to continue, I know you may have learned things this week during this hackathon, or you may have just been at the conference, but if you want to get involved and continue to engage in research, let me know. So there's 3 ways. So one is we need feedback. Our UI is, it's moving, but it's built by a group of volunteers. So we need feedback. And so please, I'll send the link after this. And I would love whoever wants to try it for the next hour, give me feedback. That's great. Yeah, there's plenty. And if you do want to give feedback, just let me know and I'll add you to our Discord so I can add you to where, it would be Haroon and Oshan and Freddie. I'm sure we'll be super grateful. And then there's also opportunities to get involved. We have a team 4, so we have 4 teams. Team 4, we kind of actually purposely make it something that if you don't have as much time, but you want to get involved, you can give a little bit of time here and there. So if you have less bandwidth, then that might be a good team. But we also have a regional lead role. So Aisha is, I don't know how many of you know Aisha. She actually was a Mila. She's a researcher. She's from Egypt. So she's actually one of our regional leads. But we're doing these regional sprints where we really help support for like a concentrated effort of like, let's improve the representation for this region. So Aisha's taking the lead there, but if anyone's interested, we definitely need more help. And that's working directly with me and a few other researchers. And we have European leads, we have Latin American leads, and we have leads from Asia. We don't have leads from the North America. We didn't think, like, feels covered. So, but we have everyone else. So it's also a good opportunity to meet researchers from other parts of the world who care deeply about these topics, because all the leads will work together, and it's going to be like a global effort. So yeah, and this is an open science project. What does that mean? Our goal is to release the data set at the end. So we are just helping to support with compute and our research resources and mentorship. But like the goal is really, this is important, and it's important for researchers everywhere to have access to this type of data set. So that is it. I am happy to pause. What I will say is I think I've left us plenty of time. Great. So I'm actually happy to take a broader, happy to take a broader step back. So I talked about Aya, but I'm also just happy to chat about whatever you want to chat about, whether it's research careers, whether it's like, you know, things you've heard at the, you know, how many of you were at ICLR? Like hands up. Okay, I hope, yeah, okay, so great. So we can talk about ICLR, we can talk about things that were there. So this can actually be much more broad. I'm happy to talk about Aya, but I also think this is a nice opportunity for us to just chat. You know, it's a Saturday. We had a really good week. I feel like it brings up a lot of discussion and thoughts. It is Saturday, right? I feel like I've lost track of it is Saturday. Yeah, but this is a nice chance to reflect. So I'd also love to hear from all of you. What did you enjoy about the conference? Or what have you been enjoying in your own journeys into NLP research? So maybe I'll start there. And also we must capture the remote room. So maybe actually let's do this. So Mubarak, are you there? Poor Mubarak, just because his name's on the screen, I just pick on him. Who's in the room with Mubarak? Let's unmute. Let's do one room at a time and make sure we have questions from each. And then we'll come to this room. Okay. Or actually, if anyone in the Zoom call wants to ask a question, put up your hands now. But we need a representative from Mubarak. Everyone's panicking in that room. You can just see they're just corresponding, they're talking, they're trying to figure it out. Let's go. That room, the pressure's on. Okay.
Regarding the hack, yes.
So what? Oh, too much pressure. Okay, is there anyone else who wants to ask a question? Maybe we'll get it going in here and then we'll go back to them once we figure it out. I mean, courage, come on, everyone. Okay, and then Hassan has a question remotely, but go for it. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, no. Hey, Hassan.
Yes, maybe it's me.
You're next. We're going to come back to you. We have a question here. The question here was a grumpy question. I'll repeat it for the crowd. So, so the question here was, I think some of you have been trying to use the Cohere for different languages, but the question is, you know, I think the question was, why is it bad? More or less.
And this stuff, like, this is going to help create a support for it.
Yeah, so the reason why is that, so there's actually not many multilingual generative models out there. So there's not many models. The models I listed at that slide here, are really how do I go back? Yeah. These ones are really the ones that are available. Most models are trained just on English. So to expect them to perform well, wow, I did a lot of slides this time. But to expect them to perform well on other languages, it's not reasonable right now. So yes, this effort is to train a multilingual model. Actually, this effort is we hope to release it. So it's actually even more, I think, powerful because we hope to collect a data set and we hope to train a model and release it. And there's not many models out there. So the reason why you're struggling when you're using a model is that it's been trained with English. So right now it's just not built to support other languages. But yeah, that's why I think this effort is so important, because we're trying to solve for that. Yeah, that was an excellent question. Hassan, I think you're up. Let me. How do Okay, thank you. I love how you're like, go now.
Okay, hi, Sarah.
Oh, hi, how's it going?
Okay, there's a question.
Okay,
Hello,
hello.
thanks for this beautiful lecture. I want to ask, what has been the impact of these findings in the African continent? Or what has been the efforts that you have put? Because I only saw that only Nigerian, few languages in Nigeria that are considered these findings. What has been your efforts to other parts of Africa? That's number one. Two, I also want to know, can you make this presentation slide available for us to also see how we can get more findings or more motivation for further research from your presentation?
Yeah, okay. Hello, AI Saturdays, Ibadan. Nice. Okay, represent. So I think there's two questions there. So what do the findings mean for Africa? I think this is a collective challenge, right? So one of the reasons why we're supporting AYA as a project is that it's mostly to support researchers who already care about this. So there's plenty of researchers all over Africa who are already working on representation for their languages. I think that what those researchers often face is lack of access to mentorship, lack of access to compute, lack of access to recognition or visibility for their work. So that's the only thing that we're doing, not just here, but for researchers that hopefully want to be involved all over the world. So there's other, I think I mentioned that this is an issue where we have this really long tail. So I think part of what Project AYA is meant to do is to motivate the urgency of this type of work, but also to support you. So it depends on you and your interests. Like this is like any community project. Community projects are messy and beautiful and depend on the people involved. So our goal is to really create a space, but it's also the ultimate success of AYA is not going to be on me. It's going to be on how much people care and how much they want to participate. So that's why I think it depends. I'll return it to AI Saturdays Ibadan. Like, what do you think the priority is? And, just people there want to get involved and have these conversations. I can't remember the second question. I think it was, can I have access to these slides? Yes, I will share these with Teju and Teju can share on. So I think we have a question from Sanusi and then we'll take another question from this room.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for taking your time to, explain all these details. As you are answering the question from my brother from Ibadan, I was like, remembering the time I actually come across AfriCENT, which is a paper that a group of researchers worked on, and they actually worked on multilingual model for some African languages. And then recently, some researchers from Nigeria worked on NigerCENT. So after seeing these two papers, I actually developed interest in like working in one of the Nigerian languages, for example, say Fulfulde or Kanuri, because they have already worked on Pidgin, they worked on Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. So I was like looking at an option for me to add a language on what they have worked on. But the quite task, it's quite tasking because I spoke with my my supervisor, like a professor in academia. He was like telling me it would be nice if I can work on another language, but I like that mentorship, that the resources were not there, so I ended up not to working on that. So I don't know, as part of AYA project, what are you doing in providing support, as you mentioned, mentorship and resources for young researchers like myself to be able to meet up to the expectation, I mean, in terms of working on things like this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, I mean, AfriCenti is a important data set contribution. So actually our goal is to add in data sets. So this XP3, let's see if I do this. Okay, nice. Yeah, so this XP3, which I mentioned, which has been added, the limited work, has actually added very few data sets in. So part of our goal right now is that we're adding in additional data sets, AfriCenti being one of them, because you can structure it as instruct style, because like AfriCenti is essentially a sentiment analysis data set. So you can say, what is the sentiment of this? And then yes or no. So the question is how are we structuring this collaboration, right? So I think every good open science collaboration is a combination of really we have a goal and a clear goal, and we meet people who want to meet us there. Like, that's the thing. So we have limited compute. We don't have infinity, but we are providing serious compute for this project because we're training big models. What in return, I think what we ask is just people be sincere in their intent. I think open research collaborations, for me, this is very close to my heart, and it's serious. We have some serious work to do to make it to releasing a really good model. Because for me, it's not enough to say we're doing this. I want this to be the best multilingual model that's available open source, and I want it to impact and be accessible to researchers all over the world. So it is a serious project. So typically, what I ask is, if you're interested, communicate what level you want to be interested in. So team 4, you can jump in and out. It's like it's things like, can you check, like, is this making sense for your language? It's things like, give us feedback on the UI. But these are things where if you have a busy life, you can jump in and out. Teams 1 through 3 are serious. Like, we have cross-institutional mentors. We have people from Google, from Bloomberg NLP. We have independent researchers. But we're serious. We're trying to build the best model in the world. And so this is a balance where we're trying to structure this as a collaboration that produces something that's very scientifically exciting. So it rests on you. I think the first step is applying to join the open science community. Once you're in the open science community, reach out. I would start by joining team 4. It will give you a sense of what the project's about. And then from there, what we typically do is we open up new opportunities for teams 1 through 3. So for example, 2 people just join from team 4 into team 1 and team 2. But a lot of it is because we're trying to do this in a way which respects everyone, because we have cross-institutional mentors and we have a lot of researchers, but we're also allocating a lot of compute. And so this is the way that we think is fair, and it really helps make sure that this is a really valuable scientific project. So I hope that added more context. But the first step, if you want to get involved, is to just apply to join the open science community, and then let's go from there. I think often the best thing to do is take a small step and figure out after that, do you like it? Because that's the other thing. You have to figure out if this is aligned with what you want to do. So yeah, we have 2 hands up. So what can I answer next?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, please, I want to find out how open are you to research collaboration? A data set has just been developed comprising Yoruba language and Creole, which is the most popular language in Sierra Leone. It's a medical data set. They're not huge, but basically medical data set that is meant for creation of multilingual purpose in Africa. There we can have a kind of signal processing and NLP project executed through that project. I want to know if you are open for collaboration to provide the data set and the experts that has also worked on it so far, so that from there we can have a collaboration.
Yeah, I don't know about this data set, so I haven't heard about it, but I would suggest the first thing to do is just to join the open science community and reach out, and then we can chat more. So without knowing more about it, but yeah, I'm happy to keep chatting. Yeah, and it looks like, oh, AI Studies Abuja is showing up. Okay, let's hear from them. The hand is up. Now the pressure's on, everyone's coming over. What is your question, AI Studies Abuja?
Deva, the last question you had. Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask, please, what are some ways to use your model for computational biology or bioinformatics analysis? Or is there any projects you are doing that's based on biological data, or anyway someone can apply maybe the application in order to solve some biological questions, stuff like that? Thank you.
So let me bring this up. So I'm not sure I fully understood that question. I think it's like asking about use of the model. So it depends what model you're talking about. So AI is a model we're building. So we've just built the baseline. So we replicated all the work that was done in November in that first paper. We just replicated it. Why do we have to replicate it? Because we have to establish what our contribution is when we publish. So we have to make a clear replication of the work that already exists. And now we're adding on our optimization strategies, our data. The models that you've probably played with this week, I'd have to know more about which model, but there's multiple models, right? There's things like Command, where you can prompt and receive a generated response. There's embedding models. So that's where you want to understand ranking or similarity. So those are actually multilingual, the embeddings. I don't know how much you've played with them, but so things like that. So I'm not sure I fully understood that question, but actually feel free to follow up in the meeting chat. And we have 15 minutes. So maybe what I'll do is while we're doing this, and we'll open up more questions, I'm going to share the link if you want to apply to get involved. And then also, if there are people who want to spend the next hour giving feedback on our UI, let me know and I can send the link. I will add you to the community so you can give feedback on it. So just send me if you would like to do that for the next, I'll be around so you can share with me. But if that's interesting, then let me know. But otherwise, if you're interested, you can also just apply to join the community afterwards. But so I've done that. So feel free to take a look at that and then feel free to ask more questions. So we haven't had one from this room in a while.
So, my question is that people, first one is that I see a lot of things like multilingual efforts and from multilingual research. It seems to be some of the targeted research area why this kind of research effort, like where everyone wants to do it from people and people want to do it that most of them are maybe to their own. Do you think it's a better position to answer those kind of projects, or is it better for the company to actually try to do efforts themselves? And why do you kind of do that? Since they might be making much better decisions, from different languages that are telling you the same, not better. Why is it doing that? And why is it always the best for open research?
I mean, my grumpy response would be that it's not natural for us to do a project like Project Aya, right? There's a reason why it hasn't happened. Because most of the times this isn't served with enough resources in open science. Most of the times this does belong in private places. So part of why I think this is so important is because this is unusual. Like for us to have enough compute to do this seriously, for like us to really try and dedicate resources like full-time research staff to supporting independent researchers, Most companies don't do this. Yeah. So I actually think it's quite special. I think you're right. I mean, I think the grumpy view is that many places don't do this, and for a good reason, because it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of coordination. So the reason why I thought it was important that we do this is that I think one of the most tricky things about this new technology is it makes some languages richer and other languages poorer. So when you are able to generate chat so quickly, you're able to generate information so quickly. What it means is for languages like English, there's just going to be much more English content out there. People can write more easily, people can co-write their emails, things like that. What it means is we're going to have almost an exacerbation of current coverage. So for me, this was really important to do, but I don't think it's natural to do. And I think that's what actually makes it so exhausting sometimes doing this type of work, because it's not the incentive structures, you have to create a new incentive structure. So when I was even talking about team 1 through team 3 and team 4, what we're trying to figure out is how do we support people and also make sure this all comes together and gives people like opportunities to weigh in this way that often is very difficult to do in a multi-institutional way. Because think about it, even something like AI Saturdays, organizing this event, coordinating different chapters, how much work is it? It's so much work. So this is actually, there's a reason why no one else is doing Project Aya right now. Or if they are, they're doing it in a regional way. But our goal is to do it in a way where we get 101 languages and improve coverage for them over the next 8 months. And it's a humble goal in some ways, but in other ways, it's a very difficult goal. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Because I actually think I agree with you. Yeah.
One question is that I'm beginning to see that it seems open source research is becoming very important. And we're seeing so many this kind of work that we have to do. And everyone is doing different ways. But is there anything we could start this structure to open source research, like open source projects generally like for software? Can we do some sort of software? Is it going to have a sort of software with open source that makes it as flexible as open source with the software? Like something that feels like when someone goes and fantastic properly, people just come from anywhere and get some context, and then people want to do that we can handle in a very flexible way, in a very simple way that anybody can do some sort of to open source that way, and what we do now, what's possible to do.
Yeah, so this is an excellent question. So just for everyone who's in different rooms, the question was, so is there a way, open science research is hard, can we create a way or a framework where people are busy, they have their own lives, that, you know, we can have people weigh in at different times in a parallel way. So I think I'm open to your input here. So we're trying to do that with team 4. So for team 4, we just have a monthly challenge and people can pick up the challenge or skip a month, you know, and so it's really, we create a special team and we meet with team 4 and we do like, they are part of the research project, but it's, you know, we understand people have lives. And so team 4 is a great example of like, you can pick and go. For the other teams, we have to balance that with the fact that, you know, there's other people who really care, and they're, you know, Haroom and Oshan and Freddie put a ton of work into the UI, and we have to make sure that they feel recognized and like they get the mentorship and they get the support that they need. So teams 1 through 3, we're almost trying this hybrid way where for people who really want this to be a paper that they are proud of and are participating in, we have those more dedicated teams, and we balance that with giving access to anyone who wants with the monthly challenge. But I actually think this is not something that I have the answer to. This is something that I'd love to get your thoughts on what has worked in the past, because what you're trying to balance is 2 things. So when the only thing that binds us together is a shared sense of meaning and a shared sense of care, it's very interesting because you need almost a different incentive structure to make sure people are recognized and that they get, in some ways, in a way that is meaningful to them, they can connect with the work. So doing research in an open science way is something I think about a lot, because I think about what binds people together, what brings people together, and how do we make sure that work is respected? Because if all of us are in a room, but then 3 people do so much of the work, which happens a lot in open science, it's really tough for those 3 people. because they feel like, wow, we did so much and yet everyone's in the room. So it's very interesting. I think it's worth thinking about when we do open science, how do we create incentive structures that value the work that people put in, but also create opportunities for people to contribute given they have busy lives and everything. So it's almost like a hybrid structure that we're playing with. But I'm curious, what do you think?
I would say that we should have an incentive that as not based on the publication, like the way our resume and have my resume they have to be contributed every so. I could actually say that the research and talk about contribution. That's not necessarily a publication. Very soon after software. Maybe you could set a certain percentage of that or that could get into the after publication.
Yeah.
Like contributors, it would be an official.
Yeah.
You do that with it, you can define that for you to be an official contributor.
Mhm.
So you don't have to be an official beneficial. Then this one is like you need to do also in the contributor. So you might not be like on the official contributor or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. For you can have something that is like what contributor cool, but we have to sort of represent style thing that
Yeah.
that maybe someone can check that because that's very interesting for me.
So that was an excellent point. Maybe I'll repeat it for the people who are not here. So I think what is being shared is this idea that, maybe what you have is much more open to everyone at the beginning, but you almost earn the right to be an official contributor. So it still recognizes the people who are giving more time. I think that's really important. I think the other important point is that typically at conferences like the one we were just at, we're obsessed with publications. It's like dominates the conversation, but publication, as many of you know, is not real world impact. So there should be ways that we recognize people who maybe their goal is not to do a paper, maybe their goal is to create like real world impact. And we should think about what that looks like. Is it like, an official badge for official contributors? Is it making sure that once you've reached a certain level of contribution, we recognize that with like a tier, visible sign that people can point to. So I agree. I think we need to change incentive structures. I think both of those are important points, because the point about you earn certain levels of recognition is really important for open science, because what I see a lot is we need ways to value the people who, for them, this is their moment. They're going to spend the next 3 months because they see this as their way to get to learn as much as they can about machine learning, to really have a project they can speak to, that they contribute to. And we need a way to value that type of contribution alongside contributions of people who, honestly, they have a full-time job. They're doing this in their lunch break, and that's fair too. So we need some way to make sure that there's some way to distinguish between those levels of contributions while also acknowledging all of them, because all of them are important. So this is really interesting. Yeah. What else? We have 4 minutes, but I will be around. I think that the offer stands. I'm really happy to get feedback on the UI. So I think what I'll do is this. I'll actually share a direct link into our Discord, because I think this group is small enough. So normally you have to apply to get in, and it's a closed community. But since it's a small, I think everyone here is very engaged. So if you want to contribute to the UI feedback, feel free to follow this link and you can join. And then what we can do is this. So I'm sharing it in the Zoom now. What we can do is this, is just when you join, please introduce yourself. And then if you can also check out the Instruct Multilingual Discord channel. That's where you can let people know if you want to be involved directly in this project, and I can add you to the place we give feedback, because right now the UI is closed. We're doing it stage by stage. So maybe that's the best way. But also do not feel obliged at all. I'm also happy to just hang out and chat about your projects and hear what you're working on. So it's really if this is interesting. So yeah, okay, we have new people just joined. Excellent. And with that, I will turn back over. So Teju, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to everyone who asked questions from all the different rooms. So I'm very excited to meet all of you.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. It's truly, truly an honor to be here. It's a very huge honor to be here with you and to have you tell us more about this open science research. Also like on the Cohere for AI Discord channel. And one of the reasons why I wanted us to have this hackathon conversation on Discord was actually this idea of having all the communities be able to jump into like different channels, and so without feeling like it's the next thing, like you have your Slack here, you have this, that, just make it easier to collaborate across different communities. So thank you for all of the work you're doing there. And I was telling Madeline the other day that like sometimes I feel so lost, like where do I contribute? And now that like I learned so much more like about Team 4, like I joined the meeting the other day. I was blown away actually. Yeah. Yeah. just trying to meeting to see what's going on. And yeah, so because I was just like I wanted to be familiar with the process, right? To understand how everyone is collaborating, because I know what it means to sign up for something and not like really poacher. It's a lot of work, and one would like more commitment. So thank you for championing that, and we'll continue to like share with everyone. And I think the most important thing is for people to know how to contribute. Yeah. And I think what Cohere for AI Lab is also excellent at is the fact that you can you have access to all this independent research. The goal is to change the way research is being done by WOM, like not just like in one place, and it's a big effort. One could really think like Femi said, like a lot of this work you would feel like big companies should invest in it, but the sad reality is that like it's not the priority. So somehow we need to change that. Yes, Sarah is in one of those companies now that's it's not huge as Google yet, but it's also like changing the landscape. And I feel like one of the things that you're doing there is to ensure that the community that you care so much about is being represented, which like I've known you for more than 5 years now, and it's always been in the context of African. So yeah, thank you so much for leading the way as we all follow.
Thank you so much. I'm not leading. We're there together.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. And that's, yes, this is it for all of our workshop series. For everyone that joined, thank you. And I think we should go back to hacking now. If there's any question, feel free to like drop it on Discord, and we can all collaborate cross country. All of the leads are also there. So feel free to ask question on Discord, and I'm here in Kigali with the Kigali team. So talk to you guys later. Happy hacking. Oh, one more announcement, please. So tomorrow, the hackathon ends tomorrow. At first, we had it at 8 a.m., but after speaking with my good colleagues here in CMU, we have reconsidered the deadline to be at 2 p.m. West African time. So we will adjust the time. Tomorrow, the hackathon ends at 2 p.m. West African time. And please start submitting, even if you have like something preliminary, because the submission requirement, it's not just one thing. You need to prepare a video, you need to do a short slide to showcase your solution. So you can just submit something, like think of it as a placeholder, and you continue to like update it as you have more things. So happy hacking. Thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Where's Simon? Where's Simon?